What's up, guys? It's Dan from Coin Bureau Trading. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin dominance, specifically things about Bitcoin dominance that you probably don't know that you need to know in the coming weeks. If this is the kind of content that you enjoy, then be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ping that notification bell. Before we get started, do keep in mind that nothing in this video is financial advice. This is just my personal analysis of the crypto market. Your analysis could be different, and if it is, that's awesome, because the more difference of opinion that we have, the better traders and the better investors we're all going to become. So first things first, guys, when it comes to Bitcoin dominance, one thing that a lot of people don't seem to talk enough about is the fact that if you look historically speaking in the 2017 cycle and the 2021 cycle, you can actually see that Bitcoin would top not when Bitcoin dominance topped, but Bitcoin would top once Bitcoin dominance started falling, specifically when Bitcoin dominance would kind of lose this, you could say, like a medium-term support level. So let's say back in the 2021 cycle, that was somewhere around 51%. As soon as Bitcoin dominance fell to that level, that's when Bitcoin topped. Similar idea here in 2021. Of course, there was kind of like a little bit of a double top scenario there, but Bitcoin's first top was actually hit not when Bitcoin dominance peaked in December 2020, but it was actually hit when Bitcoin dominance started falling below this 58% level sometime in the spring of 2021. That was when Bitcoin topped. So if we see history repeat, then Bitcoin will only top, I guess, in this cycle when Bitcoin dominance falls to, I guess, to around 55%. And this is actually something to keep in mind, because I'm sure you guys have heard all this stuff about how, oh, if you want to see a big altcoin season, then you want to see Bitcoin dominance rise first and you want to see Bitcoin rally. But this doesn't really make sense for the simple reason that if we look historically speaking, Bitcoin didn't top when Bitcoin dominance topped. It actually topped when Bitcoin dominance started falling and fell to kind of like this medium-term support. So if you're someone who holds Bitcoin, you actually want Bitcoin dominance to fall, and sooner than later, because when that drop happens, in this case to 55%, that'll probably be this kind of like blow off top with Bitcoin hitting some huge level. So you actually do want Bitcoin dominance to fall. The second thing that I'll mention on this note, as you guys can probably see, is that we've seen Bitcoin dominance grind higher throughout this entire cycle, but you could make the argument that sometime in June or July, that this kind of long-term uptrend was broken. And we can see now that basically since June or July, Bitcoin dominance has kind of been in this like medium-term downtrend. Could Bitcoin dominance continue heading higher? Of course, that's possible. But in terms of just basic analysis, again, you don't have to be some TA expert. You can see that, yes, from November 2022, Bitcoin dominance was rising until July of 2025, when it decisively fell below this kind of trend line that it had been grinding up along for the last, whatever it was, 3 years. And now we've seen Bitcoin dominance fall. So that's the other thing to keep in mind, that Bitcoin dominance, objectively speaking, is kind of in this bearish scenario. Of course, that begs the question of like, okay, well, how can we tell where Bitcoin dominance is going to go? Is it going to go higher? Is it going to go lower? How can we figure that out? What's really interesting, guys, is that what I've noticed in the last few weeks, especially since like September, we're looking at now the US dollar on the 4-hour chart and Bitcoin dominance on the 4-hour chart. And I'm zooming in here so you can see things a little clearer. What's really interesting is that the correlation between the US dollar and Bitcoin dominance is surprisingly like on par, right? It's like it's very, very high. You can see here that all these kind of like these peaks and troughs that we've seen over the last 2 months roughly in the US dollar correspond almost perfectly to the peaks and troughs that we've seen in Bitcoin dominance. And this actually makes sense, guys. I'll be doing a video about this next week. So, when it comes to like what happens with the US dollar and why it's so significant. But the long story short is that when the US dollar falls, everything else rises. And when the US dollar rises, everything else falls. This has to do with the fact that most of the debt in the world is denominated in US dollars. So when the US dollar goes up, it makes it harder to service those debts. And the result is that basically other assets need to be sold, whether it's US stocks or foreign currencies. Basically, when the US dollar goes up, it makes US dollar debts more expensive, and that results in the liquidation of assets around the margins globally. So again, I know it's a little bit complicated to wrap your head around. I'll be doing an in-depth video about that. But the key takeaway for this video is that when the DXY goes up, then that basically means liquidity is being drained from the financial system. And when the DXY goes down, which of course measures the US dollar, then that means that there's more liquidity going into the financial system. So it makes sense that you would see this correlation with Bitcoin dominance, because of course, when liquidity is drained within the crypto market, there's kind of like a flight to safety. Altcoins get like bigly affected. There's more rotation into Bitcoin. So people either sell out of altcoins completely, or they rotate into Bitcoin, which causes Bitcoin dominance to spike when there's like a global liquidity drain. But when global liquidity starts rising again, when the DXY starts falling, then this increases global liquidity and results in more capital going towards these risk assets like altcoins, which results in Bitcoin dominance going down. I hope that makes sense. But the long story short is that when it comes, especially on the shorter term timeframes, to figure out what Bitcoin dominance is going to do over the last couple of months, it looks like what we need to be watching is the US dollar. So of course, this brings us to the US dollar on the 4-hour chart. As I film this video, the US dollar is kind of squeezing on the 4-hour. It's been in kind of like a downtrend, well, for the last week or so. So like, not too long. But of course, if you look back, you'll notice that the crypto market started bouncing basically last week on November 5th. That bounce corresponded to a drop in the DXY, which is not surprising at all. And of course, we did see again like a little bit of a little, like you could say, like altcoin rally, even though there was like a very slight drop here in Bitcoin dominance. But even that slight drop had like a pretty decent bounce in some altcoins, and again that corresponded perfectly to the drop in the US dollar. So of course that begs the question, where's the US dollar headed next? Or I guess another way of putting it, if we want to figure out where Bitcoin dominance is headed next, we have to figure out where the US dollar is headed next. And to figure out where the US dollar is headed next, in my opinion, is not that hard. All we have to do is to look at what happened historically after US government shutdowns. In the 2018-2019 shutdown, we can very clearly see that the US dollar dropped after that shutdown ended. And in the 2013 shutdown, we also saw a huge drop in the US dollar after it ended. By the time you see this video, hopefully the US government shutdown will be over. So chances are that the US dollar will be squeezing lower and dropping. And don't be surprised then to see that Bitcoin dominance is also starting to drop. Of course, the effect might not be immediate. The correlation isn't completely perfect. This is just something I've noticed over the last few weeks. So, who knows, maybe this time could be different and there isn't a US dollar drop after the government shutdown ends, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. And again, it looks like the government shutdown is going to be over, but either by the time you guys see this video or shortly around that time in the next couple of days here. I'm filming on a Tuesday and this video will be posted on a Saturday. That doesn't mean that the video is outdated. I'm sure people are like, oh, like it's so used to. No, the video is not outdated. The fact of the matter is that yes, the correlation between the US dollar and Bitcoin dominance seems to be strong. I'm assuming that's going to continue to be the case here in the near term. So you do just need to watch what's going on with the US dollar. If you see the US dollar is turning over, that means that either Bitcoin dominance is going to do the same or it's already doing the same. And if you're wondering, why is Bitcoin dominance falling? Look at the US dollar. If it's falling, then that's probably why. And if Bitcoin dominance is rising, then chances are, if you look at the US dollar, it means that it's rising. That actually reminds me, last thing I'm going to mention on this subject, I guess so as it relates to the US dollar, is that if we assume, like, let's say it's correct that the US dollar is kind of like the driving force, let's say, behind Bitcoin dominance, that there's a high correlation here. If you're saying that Bitcoin dominance is going to start rising, what you're basically saying is that the US dollar is going to start rising. And if we zoom out to longer term timeframes here, guys, you can see that if the US dollar continues rising here, this will basically be like the end of the cycle, not only for crypto, but for stocks and everything. So, you'd better hope that the US dollar isn't going to rise here, or else it's basically over for the crypto market as a whole. Like there's like Bitcoin is going to crash, altcoins are going to crash, everything is going to crash. So that's why, it's a little bit scary when you hear some people saying, yeah, Bitcoin dominance is just going to keep powering higher. Well, in that case, if this correlation holds, that means the US dollar is going to keep powering higher. And that means that we're going to see a lot of liquidity drained, again, not just from crypto, but from precious metals, from stocks, from everything. So if you're calling for a huge surge in Bitcoin dominance, what you're calling for is a surge in the US dollar and for a massive crash in the markets. And of course, there needs to be some good reason for that, right? And at least in my mind. And it would also logically imply that this time is different and that the US government shutdown ending will not result in the US dollar dropping, which, by the time you see this video, we'll see which one of those scenarios it is. Anyways, guys, if you are looking to trade the market and you understand this correlation, you're like, okay, I'm going to start watching the DXY and whatever in my trading, and you're looking, to see like where can I trade, then do check out the description, click that more button and check out this link here, guys. BitGet up to 50,000 USDT deposit bonus. Click on that link. It'll take you to a page that looks like this. You guys will probably notice that the Coin Bureau does have a partnership with BitGet, but on a personal note, I think BitGet is an awesome exchange. That does not mean that you should be keeping your crypto on BitGet. Always keep your crypto in your personal wallet unless you're actively trading it. But with that being said, guys, I would suggest just making an account, seeing if you like the exchange. They have spot trading, they have futures, they have tokenized stocks, they have on-chain trading, everything you could possibly need. And if you get enough trading volume, then yes, you can get this full 50,000 USDT deposit bonus. I know that it's like, you have to do quite a bit of trading, but you'll be surprised, like that trading volume does add up. And I know that from experience. So again, just sign up for the exchange. It's completely free. See if it's right for you. And with some luck, you'll get enough trading volume to get some of these bonuses. Anyways, to wrap things up, guys, there's two things I want to note. The first one is that when it comes to figuring out what's going to happen next with Bitcoin dominance, dominance. Of course, the DXY is very helpful in that sense, but another one to look at, another indicator to keep, like, I guess in the back of your mind is ETH BTC, because if you look under the hood of Bitcoin dominance, guys, of course, you're comparing basically how much of the crypto market cap is altcoins versus Bitcoin. And when it comes to like the largest altcoins, of course, Ethereum is the largest by a pretty wide margin. So if you can see what's going on with ETH BTC, and you can see that it looks like it's bottoming, I mean, again, we'll see in the next couple of weeks here, but if ETH BTC is bottoming here, then this means that Bitcoin dominance is probably topped. And if ETH BTC starts going up, meaning if Ethereum starts outperforming Bitcoin in the next few weeks here, then this means that Bitcoin dominance will be dragged down naturally as a result of that. Because again, if you just think of Bitcoin dominance as being an index, like similar to the DXY, underneath the hood is like, what is the largest component of Bitcoin dominance? The largest component is Ethereum. So if you can, and specifically Ethereum versus Bitcoin. So if you can see that the ETH BTC pair, it looks like it's bottoming and it looks like ETH BTC is going to start rising, then again, that means that Bitcoin dominance is probably going to roll over. So you have both a macro indicator and a crypto indicator that is suggesting, hey, one of two scenarios here: either Bitcoin dominance has hit a local top and is going to roll over, or basically it's over and everything is just going to roll over into a bear market, right? That's kind of the stage that we're at. The last thing, very last thing I'll mention as well, because there's a scenario, I guess going back to the start of the video, how I was explaining that when we see Bitcoin dominance fall to this kind of like medium-term support, in this case somewhere around 55%, then that would probably mark the top for Bitcoin. There is a scenario here where this high is like a lower high. Like for example, Bitcoin rallies, but it only goes to around 100, I don't know, 18,000 or 120 instead of 126 or 130 or 140. In that scenario, I'm sure a lot of people would say like, oh, well, the top isn't in. Even though we saw this Bitcoin dominance kind of like an indicator trigger, they would say, oh, the top isn't in because Bitcoin hit a lower high. One thing to keep in the back of your mind as it relates to that, guys, is that we have seen in previous cycles, a shout out to Crypto Bullet here for pointing this out, we have seen in previous cycles where Bitcoin will top and then it will put in a lower high. And while Bitcoin is putting in this lower high, then we see altcoins rip and we see Ethereum hit new all-time highs. So this idea that Bitcoin and Ethereum and altcoins need to top at the same time, historically, that doesn't seem to be the case. Historically, what happens is that Bitcoin tops first, and then roughly about a month later, we see altcoins top after that. In this case, maybe what is quote unquote different this time, assuming the October 6th top was the cycle top for Bitcoin, then we could see a scenario where there's a little bit of a delay and it ends up being, I don't know, like 2 months or something instead of 1 month. Just something to keep in the back of your mind as a possibility. And again, key takeaway being is that Ethereum and Bitcoin and altcoins, they do not top together. Bitcoin tops first, and Ethereum and altcoins top after. We can combine this again with this Bitcoin dominance indicator, is that when Bitcoin dominance falls to 55%, that means that the top is in probably for Bitcoin, regardless of what the price is. And then roughly a month after that, or let's say 4 to 6 weeks after that happens, we can assume that that's probably where the top is going to be for Ethereum and altcoins. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Bitcoin dominance is 55%. Let's say Bitcoin is, I don't know, at 140K. Then you can say, okay, then in 1 month's time, this is when altcoins are going to top, and that's when I should start thinking about getting out of the market. Anyways, guys, if you made it this far and you did find that information helpful, then be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, ping that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one.